True scary stories often inspire urban legends, and some urban legends inspire true scary stories. Lots of urban legends have at least a small piece of truth to them. Number 5. A creepy urban legend surrounds the founder of a small town in Maine, and a monument was set up to honor him. Long before Maine was its own state, and even before the United States was a thing, a man named Jonathan Buck started his own town on the Penobscot River. Colonel Buck was a celebrated hero of the Revolutionary War, but according to the urban legend, at least one person in his town did not believe he was someone for the town to be proud of. According to legend, Buck served as a judge at one point in his career and tried a case of witchcraft. He found the woman guilty of sorcery and passed a sentence that would end her life. With her last words, the witch cursed Buck. According to one newspaper article, she predicted that a monument would be erected over his grave and said that upon that stone would appear the imprint of my foot, which would mark Buck as someone who took the life of an innocent woman. In some more disturbing versions of her tale, her leg actually fell off and rolled towards Buck while she was on the stake. Other versions of the story say Buck had actually been having an affair with the woman and accused her of witchcraft to cover up his crimes. His illegitimate son with her was the one to give Buck the curse. Whichever version of the urban legend you believe, the witch's words apparently did come true. After Buck passed away, a monument was put up in his honor, and just beneath his name is a stain that looks like a hanging foot. No matter what is done, the stain cannot be removed. Surprisingly, there is some truth to this creepy urban legend, and a lot that's more fiction than true. The stain and the monument do exist, and are now somewhat of a tourist attraction. A version of the legend is written on a plaque beside it, but the monument was put up decades after Buck passed, and wasn't a gravestone like some other versions of the story say. The weird stain appeared decades after that. If the stain is due to a witch, there are no records of her having ever existed. The witch hunts that gripped nearby Salem and other towns took place about 100 years before this urban legend is said to have taken place. Also, Buck was never a judge but a justice of the peace. He could perform marriages and dealt with minor civil cases, not something as major as what the urban legend suggests. It's still possible that there was some woman who he accused of a crime, and that the woman cursed him after she was found guilty, but it's unlikely that accusation would have been of witchcraft. The first time the story of the witch was published wasn't until 1899, 100 years after Buck passed away. However, the strange leg-shaped stain remains on the monument, and for many, a story of a witch is as good an explanation as any. Number 4. Every year at Christmas, there's a scary urban legend that goes around about an unexpected Christmas celebration that goes horribly wrong. The story goes that a man with small children has to go away on a business trip over the winter break, but without telling his family, he calls off the trip in order to surprise them. On Christmas Eve, while everyone thinks he's away, he dresses up as Santa Claus and climbs down the chimney with a bag of toys. The following morning, there's no sign of the man, and the family continue their celebrations without him. Eventually, they try to use the chimney, only for the father to fall down. He'd gotten stuck in the night and passed away. The legend is so prevalent it appeared in movies, and less morbid versions of the story appear in TV shows. Thankfully, there are no real reports of someone's Christmas becoming horrific as such an event takes place. But there are an exceptional number of stories about people getting trapped in chimneys at other times of the year. Most of the people tend to be burglars trying to break into houses. Most chimneys have bends, narrow sections, and other devices to try to stop this sort of thing from happening, and to make chimneys work better, but it doesn't stop people from trying. In 2014, there was a story of a woman who tried to climb down a man's chimney after he broke up with her. The woman was 30-year-old Genevieve Nunez Figueroa, and her ex had already found her climbing on his roof once. Nunez Figueroa got stuck 8 feet down. Luckily for her, she was heard by neighbors and the fire department was called to get her out. After at least 3 hours, the firefighters were able to pull her out alive, but she was covered in soot. Number 3. There are countless urban legends that involve the spirits of women or other things that look like women that appear at the side of the road or in secluded locations late at night. The reasons behind the apparitions vary from story to story. In some stories, they're the ghosts of women who passed away on the road, either trying to get revenge or just looking for a way back home. In others, the ghosts have a specific purpose. And in some, they don't interact with the real world in any way. The Woman in Black is a Virginian legend that dates back to at least 1902. According to newspaper reports at the time, multiple men in the town of Roanoke reported meeting a beautiful woman dressed in all black with a turban covering most of her face. She appears from nowhere, scaring the men and encouraging them to go home to their wives rather than staying out at night. After multiple reports in Roanoke, the woman apparently shifted her attention to other nearby towns. In one town, 2 men reported the same woman on the same night. It definitely seemed like people saw something that night, and thus the urban legend of the Woman in Black was born. It would have been a little early, but it's possible this was some hoax designed by anti-alcohol organizations that were beginning to get more popular at the start of the 20th century. It might have just been another ghost story. But those that knew the urban legend were definitely spooked in 2014, when reports of a mysterious woman in black walking across America emerged. The woman started her journey in Atlanta, Georgia, and it took her north. She walked for several weeks. She wore a black robe and a black headdress and carried a walking stick. The eerie picture was somewhat dispelled by the bag of belongings she carried with her, but she still appeared to be a mysterious figure. The woman eventually made her way to Virginia, but she wasn't there to scare men into being faithful to their spouses. She was an Army veteran, Elizabeth Poles, who had decided to make the journey back to where she grew up. She attracted a lot of attention, especially on social media, but claimed she just wanted to be left alone. While not quite the same as the mysterious woman in black from the urban legend, she probably did provide evidence for those that caught sight of her and didn't know her story. Number 2. In Illinois, there is a strange but sad urban legend surrounding a cemetery near the village of Forest Park. According to the legend, at the dawn of the 20th century, there was a horrific railway accident nearby. The Hagenbeck-Wallace Circus was one of the biggest circuses in the country, employing more than 200 people and needing 2 trains to transport all of its staff, animals, and equipment. Like many circuses of the age, it traveled by railroad, stopping off at large towns to put on stunning shows and then disappearing by train overnight. The night of June 21st was no different. The 2 trains left Michigan City, Indiana, for the town of Hammond near the border with Illinois. The first train, which carried most of the animal acts and some of the staff, made it to Hammond without problem, but the second train had a mechanical issue. The engineers were worried the problem might cause the whole train to catch fire. They stopped off on a side track to assess the situation, but the train was too long to all fit on the side track. The last 5 carriages sat on the main track. There were multiple signs on the line indicating there was a stopped train, and a group of engineers stood down the line with lamps to give further warning. But at 4 a.m. the next morning, a train under the control of a sleeping driver ignored all of the warnings. The 2 trains collided, and the wooden sleeper carriages at the back of the train were destroyed. A fire then broke out due to the oil lamps used to light the carriages. In all, 86 people lost their lives, and more than 100 more were wounded. The urban legend states that elephants were among those that were lost in the accident. Too heavy to move, they were buried where they fell. The circus performers and family members that lost their lives were transported to Woodlawn Cemetery near Chicago, where the Showman's League had recently purchased a large burial plot. Today, those that lost their lives are memorialized at Showman's Rest, where the statues of 4 elephants surround the plot of land where the people were buried. According to the urban legend, it's said the circus continues even after life, and the sound of circus music and elephants calling can be heard at night. Most of the urban legend is completely true. The train crash did happen, and the mass grave does exist. While there are elephant statues at the site, the fact that elephants were involved in the crash seems to have been an embellishment, and the existence of the paranormal is obviously open to debate, but there's no doubt this is a creepy urban legend, especially for anyone with a fear of clowns. Number 1. The legend of the Dog Boy is one of the darkest and most disturbing urban legends, only made worse by the fact that it's true. There are plenty of stories of half-man, half-animal creatures that are said to lurk in the shadows, especially around older or more rural communities. Normally, these creatures are created by some sick experiment or curse. But the Quitman urban legend is nothing like this. The Quitman Dog Boy didn't get his nickname because of some physical features. Rather, it was his actions and disturbing crimes that earned the name. Gerald Floyd Bettis was born to Floyd and Aline Bettis in 1954. They were good people and had wanted to start a family for a while, but their son was nothing like them. He soon earned a reputation for being an aggressive and angry young man. He was known to collect stray cats and dogs and take them into his home, where he would perform experiments on them. But his violent acts didn't stop with animals. Bettis locked his parents in their attic, physically attacked them, and withheld food. It's said on one occasion he threw his father from a window. Miraculously, Floyd survived the fall but would later pass away due to an illness. Bettis continued to attack his mother until she ended up in the hospital and was put in protective care. Bettis was later arrested for his acts and passed away in prison, but his presence is said to still linger in the house he once called home. Ever since the Bettis family moved on, those who have owned or lived in the house have reported strange goings-on. People have seen specters, sometimes up close, while other times looking down at them from the attic window. One woman reported coming home one day to see a collection of pennies floating down the stairs, only to fall to the ground suddenly. Cold spots, lights turning on and off, and unexplained voices have also been heard. Not all the activity is attributed to the Dog Boy. Apparently, the ghost of a World War I soldier who had grown up in the house before his deployment still resides there. But Gerald Bettis is also believed to be one of the spirits. Some have described his ghost as human-looking, while others say his actions in life have left him with a more animalistic appearance. The urban legend of the Dog Boy and the apparent paranormal activity in the house means the current owners have been struggling to sell and do not want to stay there any longer than they have to. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.